welcome to Do You Believe? It's been a while since I've been on. I've been busy, unfortunately, doing other things. So I'm back. This is going to be a short one because this is something I feel like everybody needs to know, and a lot of people are so busy they don't keep up with what's going on in the world. So without further ado, let me jump into this real quick. George Soros and his paid thugs are again protesting against Israel and supporting the Palestinians. Soros got a group called the Community Action Justice Fund, and they're asking for donations, and people are giving them money so they can pay these thugs to continue to protest. What they're doing right now is they're blocking bridges, they're blocking interstate highways, they're blocking airports and waterways. And this should not be allowed. But the law enforcement is moving really slowly to stop this. So they're taking orders from somewhere high up. The governors aren't even getting involved in California and Illinois and New York and Baltimore and other places. So these so-called protesters are just another means to cause chaos in American streets. We saw it before with Antifa, with Black Lives Matter, and all they do is they cause chaos. They destroy things. It's just a matter of destruction. But if you notice, it only happens in Democrat-controlled states and cities.
Fox News alert to these live protests happening quite literally coast to coast, popping up all over the country in recent weeks and months. And today, San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge is shut down due to a handful of protesters there. We are told there has been 7 arrests so far, some of which we've seen happen live on our screen. Screen right, that's Lower Manhattan, New York City, where anti-Israel protests continue to grow in number there. This is the Wall Street area. It was a planned protest, and it is happening now. And civil rights attorney Leo Terrell is joining us with his thoughts as we see this unfold, and we try to estimate the impact this is having on so many. Leo.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Can you notice what's happening in San Francisco and New York? I would ask you and John to get a call into Governor Newsom in California or the governor in New York and ask them, why haven't they appeared? They can stop this right now. In California, Sandra, Gavin Newsom controls the highway patrol. And I saw John's interview with Ro Khanna when he made reference to this protest on the bridge to Selma in 1965. How dare he? I mean, there's no comparison. This is criminal conduct at its worst, and it's hurting Americans who are trying to live their lives. This is because the Democrats are looking the other way at pro-Hamas activities in America. This is embarrassing.
As we look at what's going on the left-hand side of our screen, all those highway patrol officers who have been taken away from what they would normally be doing today, and it looks like there's probably 100 of them. There's a huge line of cars as they deal with these protesters, but we can see it looks like they've got their arms locked in some sort of tube. Paul Morrow was talking about this earlier. And they've locked themselves to those cars. It looks like a coordinated effort where you had 3 cars that were going in tandem across the bridge. They slowed down and stopped. Look at that line of police cars there. They slowed down and stopped, and then they stopped all the other traffic. They got out, they chained themselves to the cars. They unfurled a banner. The people who are holding the banner have been arrested. But how do you get those people removed from the cars? And this has been going on now, Leo, for 4 hours. And the amount of law enforcement that has been diverted from what they're normally doing to take care of this really would seem to me, given police shortages across the country, I guess leaving a lot of areas exposed at this point.
John, you're absolutely right, and this is why I have to go back to the basic core. You're looking at criminal conduct in California, Chicago, and New York. And I would ask Fox News to put in a call to the governors. Where's the action? These officers are taking their marching orders from somewhere up top. But I guarantee you, the Democratic leadership in these states are missing in action. This could be stopped if they wanted it. but they're not doing it, John. And so that's where I'm asking. Get the governors on the line and ask, why are you allowing this?
There's an open invitation for the governor to join. That is for sure. Leo, we have our calls into the governor's office as we watch this together. I want to add this in right now on the number of protesters that are just off the bridge there in California. Hundreds were gathered near 7th Street. An arrest had been made there as well. So you had the protests from early this morning, then the one right on the bridge. One of the local reporters shared video footage of the protesters standing in the middle of the highway, northbound 880, holding a sign reading A15 Economic Blockade for a Free Palestine. And the local reporters also reporting that the protesters had chained themselves to barrels there. And the Oakland protest, per their announcement they would do this, was part of a multi-city effort called the A15 Economic Blockade to block major economic arteries. Well, that is certainly happening right before us on this screen, Leo.
Yes, Sandra, and it's nationwide. And I would like to be your designated reporter for you and John to follow to see if there are going to be arrests, convictions, and imprisonment. That's going to be the key, because these individuals are encouraged to do it again. There's a pattern practice going on. Will there be any repercussions against these individuals who are breaking the law? I will be your exclusive reporter to find out if the district attorneys in soft on crimes, California, are going to prosecute, convict, and imprison. I would submit to you, it's not going to happen.
All right, Leo. Well, we'll see if this is ever over, and I'm sure at some point it will be. What happens to the people who were involved? We thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno.
So, Homeland Security, and like I said, the title itself is a joke. Homeland Lack of Security. Mayorkas, the Homeland Security chief, who was impeached in the House, by the way, has allowed on his watch hundreds of Chinese nationals, hundreds of people from questionable countries, and known felons to cross our border, our open border, and then release them into the population. Biden's policies are by design, and Mayorkas, why he's loved so much, by all accounts, is not enforcing the law that's already on the books. He is allowing all this to take place, and he is stymieing the Border Patrol. So Texas, bless their hearts, have taken the lead in this, and it's held up in court. And now my home state is doing the same thing. I love our governor here in Oklahoma. They're doing the same thing, and they've got a bill introduced now that's almost identical to the Texas bill, and I'm happy about that. Now, Fox News reports that migrant crime is soaring due to the laws not being enforced. They have recently spiked, causing chaos on the streets, primarily in Democratic-run cities. Fentanyl, deadly fentanyl, being brought through the open borders is also at an all-time high. It is time for these things to stop. Again, people need to take a stance. If you do nothing, then you're saying it's okay. If you don't go out and vote, then you're saying it's okay. It is the only way that we can stop it is through our own protest and by voting in November. And make sure you vote for people who stand against what's taking place. Justice is not blind. The Justice Department and local DA offices in Democrat-controlled cities are using the law to prosecute a former president, while others who just happen to be Democrats are not prosecuted. Justice is only blind if you toe the line and fall in step with the left. It's just a matter of fact. I mean, if you can't see it, then you're blinded, or you may be delusional. If it isn't apparent to you that the law is used unfairly, then you haven't been watching what's happening to President Trump and not happening to the Biden family, the Clintons or the Obamas, and others who just happen to be Democrats. There's one set of rules for them and one set of rules for everybody else. This too must stop. They are doing everything to stop Trump because they know he will stop their plans for a total takeover. We're living in dangerous times. All these migrants coming into this country, all these people coming from other countries, China, Venezuela, and other places that in the Middle East that we know are dangerous, they want them here. And then they're going to find a way to make it legal for them to vote. Even though the Constitution says you have to be a citizen of this country. They're going to try to find a way because they want total control. They want one party solution, and whoever that party is, and of course they want it to be Democrat, who at one time was for the little guy, but now it's switched, and now it's the Republican Party that's for the little guy. Yet I'm not real happy with them either because now they want to oust another speaker because he's trying to do the right thing. I think we need to get rid of those far right-wing morons that are sitting there in the Congress who continue to do these stupid things and bring in people who will actually try to get something done for the people. Look, Soros is the one behind the funding of Antifa, a socialist, fascist, anti-American group that burns cities, beats innocent people, and disrupts communities, again in Democrat-controlled states and cities. They call themselves anti-fascist, but yet they are the fascists. It's a joke when you hear them say, we hate fascism. But they are the fascists. And who is to blame? We are. For not taking a stance against the corruption in our communities, state, local, and federal governments. What's next? We need to pray for Israel, pray for the United States, and pray for God's intervention to bring an end to this evil that is plaguing our country and Israel. Watch the video from Fox News. It's appalling. Until next time, God bless you.
Tribe needs a talisman. That's a good luck charm, if you will. And of course, they need a bogeyman as well to rail against. The left, well, they've got their modern deities, race-baiting President Obama, and in Australia, spendthrift Gough Whitlam, for example. And their demons, well, of course, they include Donald Trump and our very own Tony Abbott. Now, on the political right, the legends are Thatcher, Reagan, Howard, and yet nothing seems to stir the enmity like the name George Soros. Now, I often wonder why that is. Surely it's not just because Soros is a very rich man, a multi-billionaire. There are plenty of those out there around the world. And the left, well, they'll say that any criticism of Soros is actually motivated by anti-Semitism. But that doesn't ring true either. You see, the centre-right political sphere, they're usually the unabashed supporters of the Jewish state, while the most anti-Semitic fervour is usually recorded on the left side of politics. So who really is George Soros? Well, according to his website, he is, and I quote, prominent international supporter of democratic ideals and causes for more than 30 years. His philanthropic organisation, the Open Society Foundations, supports democracy and human rights in more than 100 countries. Now, it also says he's one of history's most successful financiers and has actually given away more than $32 billion to his foundation's work. And that work is, and I quote again, to support individuals and organisations across the globe fighting for freedom of expression, accountable government, and societies that promote justice and equality. Well, what's wrong with that? It all sounds peachy and a postcard for billionaire philanthropy. However, once you get past the self-serving website blurb, it is a slightly darker path that gets revealed. You see, Soros and the Open Society Foundation's billions look to be a one-way flow of leftist funding. There is scarcely a left-wing cause he doesn't have his financial fingerprints on. Now, most of these are done at arm's length through myriad of intermediary companies and organisations, but the original source of the funds is often the same. Now, in America, there's websites that document hundreds of organisations that benefit from Soros funds, including innocuous-sounding groups like Defenders of Wildlife, which is actually a green group that condemns logging, farming, mining, and recreational motor vehicles, much like our own Greens here in Australia. And right through to Planned Parenthood, which sounds pretty innocuous too, but it is the largest abortion provider in the United States. Soros is also a keen advocate for the World Economic Forum, where he is an agenda contributor with such notable contributions as blaming the hysterical anti-Muslim reaction to terrorism as actually creating a breeding ground for terrorists, and that the way to defeat ISIS and Islamic extremism is to not react like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Gee, last time I looked, the Trump approach actually worked, while the Soros approach, led by Joe Biden, has already proved to be a disaster. Soros also gave a speech to the WEF held at Davos in 2019. In that speech, he roundly condemned the surveillance state and authoritarian government. He said, and I quote again, "Authoritarian regimes use whatever instruments of control they possess to maintain themselves in power at the expense of those whom they exploit and suppress." Well, I happen to agree with him. However, the difference between words, which are actually very, very cheap, and action, which is actually very expensive, shows why people put money where their mouth should be. And that's why we pay more attention to what Soros actually does rather than what he does say. Now, I'm the first to say there is a lot of myth mixed with truth surrounding this man and his outreach. Organisations that he's reputedly funded in turn are reported to have funded Australian left-wing campaign organisations like GetUp, for example. Now, that's what people tell me. That's what my research sort of suggests, but it's very hard to track down. But some of his influence has been revealed before. In 2016, the Australian newspaper revealed that Soros-affiliated organisations, quote, attacked liberal democracy by delegitimising the classically liberal values of individualism, free speech, logical argument, and public reason. That column by Jennifer Oriel noted, and I quote again, "While NGOs and human rights groups routinely demand greater governmental transparency and accountability, they are rarely required to live up to their own standards." Well, that certainly seems true. In this case, a new global transparency group, Transparify, rated Soros's foundations 0 for transparency among more than 200 organisations. Well, a new book scheduled for release in December now promises to reveal the secret network of George Soros and his influence on global affairs. It covers every single notable organisation that Soros has funded over the past 2 decades, and it exposes his influence on higher education, the 2020 US presidential election, his manipulation of the media, and the true story surrounding his childhood under the Nazis in Hungary.